Well, I think with this new one, so this is he's a effectively a deposed prince. Um and he's hiding from the hierarchy. Hierarchy's a world-spanning government. It's quite oppressive. Everybody has to be part of this magic system called will, where you're seeding sort of half of your strength and vitality and energy and so on to people in kind of a higher social echelon than you are. And he's doesn't want to be a part of that system, and so he's effectively in Will of the Many in particular. He's just trying to survive. Uh, and in terms of the world, yeah, I find it is a different experience with Hierarchy because it's first person perspective and it's a single point of view. So even more, I still found it a bit with Lacanius, but in Will of the Many in particular, I do visualize kind of me in Vis's head, if you know, and I do kind of see it as he's like you said, walking through the world. Um, and there's a lot of Roman influence, so that actually helps me visualize a lot, because it's sort of a shorthand, I think even for readers as well, to be able to go, oh yeah, it's there's a lot of Roman terminology and all that sort of stuff and architecture and uh I think that's very easy for most people to say, oh yeah, I can kind of generally think of how Catan is going to look because it's effectively fantasy Rome. He gets adopted by Quintus, who is quite high up in the hierarchy, to go to this sort of elite academy to uh, try and uncover the fate of the Quintus's brother, who he believes was murdered. Um, so he's effectively trying to solve a murder while he's there, and the principal of the school is very much a suspect in it. Um, so he's there from one aspect to find that out, but he's also there because if he can uh, kind of rise through the ranks and graduate at the top of the school, then he gets to choose where he goes in the hierarchy, and he can go somewhere that won't require him to seed his will, which is something that he, as someone who really hates the hierarchy, is very intent on doing. So the book is very much about these two really, well, more than two actually, but there's a lot of pressures on him where he's trying to hide his identity generally because the hierarchy will kill him if they realize that he's this prince that's in hiding. He's trying to solve a murder that nobody knows that he's there to solve. And he's also trying to graduate top of the class so that he can kind of escape this horrible life that he's leading. I think Calidus and Iden, the two that he really becomes friends with, uh, there's a lot of as a character, just naturally due to his past, due to his situation, he's very mistrustful. And again, it's all first person point of view, so uh, I feel like it's a book where you don't really know who to trust. Um, and these two guys that he meets in the academy sort of gradually becomes friends with, and I wouldn't say that he trusts them completely. He doesn't tell them his secret. Um, but I think that is still a really valuable thing for him because he's been alone for so long, and to actually have these people that he feels connection to. Um, I really enjoyed writing that because that was such a key thing for this. A lot of it is staying in Vis's head, and then when he's interacting with another character, going, okay, well, what's this character's motivations? What have they been doing outside of, when Vis hasn't been there? And making sure that they have their own lives and their own, like I said, motivations. They're the hero of their own story, I guess. And and so that really informs his interactions with them, and I guess their reactions to what he's doing. I found it really enjoyable too because he starts from the lowest class and he has to work his way up to the top class. and I really wanted to make his progress varied and interesting rather than just going, oh, he's smarter than everybody else, and so he just keeps on moving up. And so there's all sorts of different challenges in each class for him to move up. In one of the earlier classes, he just comes across a teacher who just takes an instant dislike to him, and it's because of um, it's basically because of political reasons. It's because of reasons to do with his adoptive father. Um, and he gets stuck. He gets stuck for weeks where he can't advance, even though he should clearly be advancing. He's clearly the best in the class, but this teacher is just kind of just an awful human being, um, and so he becomes very frustrated. And then there comes a point where he gets a chance to prove himself in a duel, effectively against one of the other students, and the teacher tries to cheat, and he this has uh, I guess a lot of pent up anger that he has to kind of keep keep restrained a lot of the time, again because of his past. And that was the scene where he really got to kind of let loose and be angry. Um, and I really enjoyed that because um, he was finally progressing. He got to kind of show up this teacher and these other students as well who had really kind of been horrible to him. Um, so that was something I really enjoyed. And then the other one I really enjoyed because it was a challenge and I knew it would be a challenge is he wins a game of Foundation, which is effectively a chess-like game. And I knew that's how I wanted him to progress at that point in the story. But as a scene, I kind of went, all right, how do I write an engaging scene where it's just him playing chess? And it's not necessarily in concept, it's not the most engaging thing. But I think a number of storylines kind of came together at that point. And it ended up being, I think, a really great scene. And so I was really happy with how that turned out. That was really fun to write. Getting into to spoiler sort of territory, which is fine. The end of the Will of the Many, you find out that he uh, has effectively been split across three worlds. And in the Will of the Many, even though it is focused on this and his sort of personal journey, in the background, you know that there's sort of these bigger epic fantasy type things going on, and there's very strong hints about it. But at the end, you find out that there's now three versions of him in three separate worlds. And I did that because I really wanted to explore in this series this idea that in the first book you get to know this character really, really well because you've got one point of view. And in the second book, I'm splitting that into three points of view. It's all the same character, um, but uh, getting to watch him experience different things and gradually kind of diverge as a character, and uh, have different opinions on different things. I think by the start of the Strength of the Few, you're following the same character across three different worlds. By the end of the Strength of the Few, you're really following three different characters. It was tricky. That was something that I hadn't really seen done before, and I didn't really have any easy sort of guiding lights to point to and go, okay, I'll just do it do it like this sort of thing. So what I ended up doing for Strength of the Few was I did my usual sort of broad outline, and I knew my key points and key scenes, and I knew where I was going. But then when I actually wrote the book, I split it into those three different worlds. So I wrote one world all the way through first, and then I wrote the next world, and then I wrote the next world. So that's following along one version of this, and that let me kind of give him a really distinct feel. It let me kind of track his evolution a little bit more um, consistently, I guess, rather than trying to jump from one to one, and split it up that way, which is not normally how I would do it. It's normally how I would write. It's how I wrote Lacanius with the different points of view. But this one, yeah, I split it up, and I think it worked out well in the end. But it was definitely a challenge in some ways. Because it's still the same, you know, it's still all one story, and so I had to make sure that even though he's in these three different worlds and facing different challenges, it is all ultimately tying back into this one ongoing story that I want to eventually, you know, at the end of the series, it will all culminate in. Um, and in a big finale that all three versions of him are going to be involved in. Um, but it let me firstly kind of explore the different worlds in you know, I was very focused on Rome and Roman sort of history in The Will of the Many. In The Strength of the Few, I get to explore some Egyptian mythology and some Celtic mythology, which was really great. And then giving the different versions of this different challenges as well. So, one world, he has to be extremely pragmatic in terms of how he approaches what he has to do. It's very difficult to survive. You know, it's a struggle for just the necessities, just for food and water sort of thing. And then in another world, he finds kind of a measure of peace in some ways. Um, he he's free of the hierarchy. He's in a world where he has people that he trusts and respects, and he still has things that he very much needs to overcome. And he still obviously has this sense of responsibility for the larger story. But yeah, so you've got that, and then you've got the Vis in still um, in Res in the Roman world, and he's still dealing with all of the politics. He's still dealing with the fallout of the end of the first book, which the other two versions of Vis didn't have to. He's dealing with a bunch of betrayals. So his sense of trust and his sense of you know, what he's willing to do to to fight the hierarchy is sort of evolving as well.